Hello and welcome to this week's video. My name is Anuska Taylor. Thank you so much for joining me. Now, on today's video, I am talking about the difference between your habitual voice versus your natural or your authentic voice. This is a big part of my work. If you've watched any of my videos, if you've checked out my website, this is really at the core of what I do. It's all about bringing you home, reclaiming your authentic voice, bringing you back to your true self. And this is, I think, what makes my work quite unique. But I'm going to talk a little bit more about this because I read a quote earlier this week which inspired this video, actually. So there was an eminent voice teacher called Arthur Lessig who said habit is an anesthetic. So I'm going to talk a little bit more about this habitual voice versus authentic voice. Before I get going, though, if you haven't yet subscribed to my channel, please don't forget to hit that subscribe button. Most people that watch my videos are not subscribed, and I totally get it, but it really does make a huge, huge difference. So if you can find a second just to click that subscribe button, I would really appreciate it. Of course, as well, if you're interested in working with me, all the links are below. If you would prefer to do a DIY course, I've got a couple of online courses through to my signature 8-month private voice coaching program, Speak with Impact. Of course, it really depends on the level of support you want, and more importantly, how ready and willing you are to invest. It's not only a financial investment, but an investment of your time and your energy. So you are going to get out what you put in. But all the links are below anyway. Do reach out if you have any questions. So let's get going then. And I want to talk about, first of all, the habitual voice, which is probably the voice that you identify with as being who you are. And this isn't to judge you, because we all do this until we know different. But it really is, if there's any kind of limitation, constriction, manipulation, force, effort, or tension in the voice, you know on some level that the conditioning or the programming is driving your voice. Therefore, it's not your authentic voice. It's not your true voice, because the true voice is free, it's open, it's powerful, and it's expressive, regardless of accent. Just want to put that caveat in as well. So we're not aiming for a particular accent in voice training. Well, I'm not anyway. This is about bringing more of you to the table. And my belief is all accents can be clear, can be open, can be powerful. And also, as I say, the real core piece for my work is that most people totally unconsciously think that their voice is who they are. They're very, very bound up with the identity of their voice. And so even if there's restrictions or limitations, because they believe it's who they are, they don't want to actually do the work to discover who they really are. And my work is really about seeing the voice as a tool to discover the truth of you, because it's revealing so much. It's revealing your inner world. It's revealing your inner conflicts. Where do you pull your voice back? Where do you feel like you have to defend and fight and maybe be more aggressive and loud? You know, we all come with different conditioning and different programming. So there's no right or wrong, but it really depends. For some people, the voice is used in a defensive way, in a very sort of loud and forced way. For other people, it's a defensive way when it's shut down and I just don't express myself and my voice is powerless and I mumble and no one can hear me. But either side of the coin, it's not who you really are. It's not your true voice. So this habitual voice then is very, very driven by your programming, by your early conditioning, and not even just your early conditioning, actually, the conditioning that's been passed down through potentially generations before you. So you do have to kind of go maybe past your childhood to look at your parents, to look at your grandparents as well, to see what was the messaging that you were all getting around expression, around voice use, around sharing your thoughts, your feelings and ideas. You know, a lot of families don't talk about emotional things. You know, it's the stiff upper lip. Let's just don't cry, don't show emotion, just pretend everything's fine. And of course, then that comes through in the voice. You're not going to have that emotional expression in the voice, unless, of course, you've done the work and you've done the training. So that's the caveat here. But for most people, they don't do that. And here, my videos are really aimed at speakers anyway, and most speakers won't do training. I think for singers, it's really just part of the course that if you want to become the greatest singer you can be, there's an element of training that you have to do. But for a lot of us with speakers, we just think, well, this is my voice. This is how I sound. There's nothing I can do. So the habitual voice then is this kind of limited voice. It's this forced, effortful, manipulated voice in some shape or form. And its goal, its role is to protect you. So we don't want to make it wrong. This is really important. We're not judging the conditioned voice. It's done a great job. It's kept you safe. It's kept you alive. However old you are watching this video right now, your conditioned vocal habits have kept you safe. So if you grew up in a home where you were taught it wasn't safe to express emotion, where you had to hold it all together, you weren't allowed to cry, you weren't allowed to show emotion, then your voice probably is very controlled, maybe a little bit forced, maybe a little bit almost harsh, a little bit hard. That's okay, because that has served you. But it's just to know that isn't who you are, and that isn't what's possible with your voice. Now, of course, if you're happy with that, that's great. You probably won't be watching this video. But if you want to really access the full potential, the full expression, dynamics, and clarity and power in your voice, then we have to be willing to kind of explore what we've pushed away. And so this for me is true authenticity. So we've got the mask, the ego sort of persona that we've adopted to help us fit in, and we've got the vocal habits that we use to keep us alive, to help us feel safe in the world. But then there's all this stuff that we've learned isn't safe, isn't socially adaptive, isn't okay, consciously and unconsciously. So some of this you won't be aware of. That all goes into the shadow. So the true authentic self is this integration of the two, so that you're not afraid to express yourself. You're not afraid to show up however the situation calls. So if it requires you to be more assertive and more aggressive and perhaps be okay with conflict, you're able to do that. But equally, if it requires more vulnerability and more emotion and more sensitivity, you're able to do that too. So you're not sort of stuck in one sort of proverbial room of the house. So you have the flexibility and the capability to access a range of emotions and express it through your voice. So with this habitual voice then, when you really tune into that voice, there will be some restriction, constriction, manipulation, force. It probably is not going to feel that good. You might have some awareness, you might not. So you might find that your voice fatigues really easily. Your throat feels tight. For example, your jaw feels tight. It could show up in so many different ways. However, emotionally, it will probably feel comfortable. So physically, if you tuned in, it's probably not going to feel that comfortable, but emotionally, it will feel comfortable. Then that's what I'm saying when I do this work with people and we start leaving their comfort zone, it's the emotional piece that they really have the resistance against, because they know on some level, my voice isn't working that well, this is not feeling that good, but emotionally it feels comfortable. Emotionally it feels comfortable on some level. Again, there's going to be an element of discomfort emotionally, but more of you is going to feel comfortable than uncomfortable. So if you're in a meeting and you're not speaking up, there's an element of comfort to that, for example, versus now when we leave the comfort zone and now you start to speak up in a meeting. That is going to challenge your ego. That is going to challenge all of this conditioning and all of this programming. So just to remember, the habitual voice will feel probably uncomfortable, but emotionally will be comfortable. And that's what makes it so difficult to do, because you can do all the exercises in the world, but you're still not really going to let yourself leave that comfort zone, because you've got to then face your shadow. You've got to face what you've been pushing away, maybe for decades. And it's totally possible, but it's very hard to do by yourself. So you are going to be having to face off with things that you've spent your life running away from. And this is why the voice is such a powerful tool, because what's being revealed in your voice, guaranteed, will be driving every aspect of your life, where not just business, not just professional, but your personal life as well. So for me, although this is technically voice coaching, it's really unlocking your power as a speaker, but as a human being in the world. So it's so much greater than just voice coaching. So the question to ask yourself then, emotionally, When you notice you've got limitations with your voice, so let's say you run out of breath easily, let's say you mumble, let's say there's a lot of croakiness or raspiness, let's say you struggle with power, you struggle to project your voice. Ask yourself with compassion, with love, how does this serve me? Because it's serving you. So we don't want to make it wrong. We don't want to beat ourselves up. We don't want to judge ourselves. But on some level, those vocal habits are serving you, which is why you have to do the deeper work, because otherwise you're just trying to like rearrange the deck chairs. It's not going to actually make any lasting change, because fundamentally there's an emotional shift that has to occur. So ask yourself that question: how do my current vocal habits that I know on some level are limiting me in terms of getting my needs met or asking for what I want or taking bigger opportunities, but how is it emotionally serving me? And if you can't think of it straight away, that's okay. Let it percolate, journal, meditate, go for a walk, but just see what comes up, because I guarantee there is something there that you are being protected from, and that is what you have to go towards. So then the natural or the authentic voice, as I said, it's like free, it's open, it's expressive, it's powerful. But importantly, you have a conscious choice over this voice. So you are not afraid to be perceived in a particular way. You're not afraid to come across as aggressive. You're not afraid to come across as over the top, as too much. You are just in your power and you show up as you see fit for that particular scenario. It might involve you having to have a really challenging conversation with someone and be okay with conflict. And maybe having to be more assertive and having to be more authoritative. Or you could be the other side of the coin. It might be you having to be more vulnerable and maybe just not speak and listen and let other people share how they're feeling, and let go of some of that sort of defensiveness around the voice from that more forced, sort of muscled way. So the roles are reversed. So with the habitual voice, emotionally it's comfortable because you're in your comfort zone emotionally, but physically it's probably going to feel uncomfortable, particularly when you begin to tune in to what's going on within. The natural or the authentic voice is the opposite. Emotionally, it's probably going to feel uncomfortable because now you're having to face off with these shadow parts of yourself that you've probably spent decades running away from. But physically, it's going to feel comfortable. So we kind of swap, and that's why it can be so challenging, because people, when we start to do this work, they feel the difference, they feel their voice opening, they feel the freedom in their voice, but that comes with all this emotional baggage of, oh my God, what are people going to think? And I hear this all the time. What are people going to think? I sound too much, I sound too over the top, no one is going to take me seriously, this is too much. And just know that's just the ego. It's trying to bring you back. It wants you to go back into your little box, into your little room, fly under the radar, don't create any waves, don't rock the boat, don't upset anyone, and just stay safe. Follow the herd, in the words of Carl Jung. So this is why it is so difficult to do by yourself. And this is why the emotional piece is so important, because that's what's really going to allow you to leave those vocal limitations and access and reclaim your authentic voice. So coming back to the quote from Arthur Lessig, where he said that habit is an anesthetic. So we can think then as habits almost numbing us out emotionally. We're almost on autopilot and we're almost just caught up in this loop every day. So because we're emotionally comfortable, and I do it like that because I know there is still an element of discomfort, but it's more comfortable than uncomfortable. We don't really challenge it and we just stay stuck in this kind of like a fish in water. We don't even know, we stay stuck swimming in this programming because it's comfortable. And the opposite is uncomfortable, but that's where the freedom lies. And that's why this inner work is absolutely fundamental if you want to create lasting change. Because just doing the voice exercises, as I've explained, you are going to have to deal with the emotional piece, because there's a reason why you have created, consciously and unconsciously, the vocal habits that are limiting you. So as I say, we don't want to blame ourselves, we don't want to judge ourselves, make ourselves wrong. We see them for what they are, a way of serving us, a way of emotionally protecting us, But now as adults, we don't need that anymore. We can let go of that. But that is not going to happen overnight, of course. We could have had decades of this. So that's why I work with clients for 8 months, because it's a process, it takes time. I'm going to leave you then just again with the final question. So in terms of your current vocal habits, just start to journal, think about, how are my current vocal habits serving me emotionally? And what would open up for me if I was willing to confront those emotional pieces? So maybe a fear of conflict, maybe a fear of being seen, heard, too much, over the top, being criticized because people don't agree with you, or maybe being vulnerable and people seeing a vulnerable side of you. And you've always had this kind of protective barrier around you of, no one's going to get close to me. I'm going to be this really aggressive, loud person. So whatever it is for you, just start to journal about this and think about this, because it really is the starting point. And I promise you, vocal exercises will only take you so far. I've spent my life doing vocal exercises from about the age of 10. So I say this with a lot of experience. And this inner work is really the path to freedom, because it's not just your voice that will change. And when I say change, I mean the true voice will be revealed. It's more a revealing process. We're not creating something new, but it's also your life will change. You will just show up differently. You will feel different, and you won't be afraid to be seen, to be heard, to put yourself out there. And that is going to open up more opportunities for you for success in every area of your life. So if this resonates with you, as I say, this is a big part of my 8-month private voice coaching program. Check out the link below. I've got a specific page for Speak with Impact. If it resonates with you, I'd love to chat with you. It is an investment, but this is a lifetime skill. This is a lifetime investment, because you show up differently and every aspect of your life changes. It's not just your voice, it's everything. You just show up completely differently. So thank you so much for watching, and I will see you next time.